Good afternoon, Washington, D.C. This is Tony Browder, and welcome to another edition of the Browder Files Show. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, as we move into this season of thanks and giving, I'd like to thank everyone who commented on my last two shows. 2 weeks ago, on November the 12th, brothers Kaba and Bobby Rocks joined me in a deeply personal discussion of Black fatherhood. We discussed our experiences as single fathers and also the impact of not having or having a father in one's life as we were growing up. And I received a number of calls and comments from friends who said that show really touched them. I've got a buddy, Greg, who I've known for over 35 years, a native Washingtonian, grew up in Northeast DC, and one of the few Black men I knew who had a mother and father and lived with them throughout his entire childhood. And we've talked about his parents. I've talked about, not having a father in my life over the decades. We've had conversations. But he called me the Friday after my show and said, Tony, man, I got it. I finally got it. I really took for granted what having a father in my life throughout my childhood and my adult life meant to me. And hearing you talk, hearing Bobby talk about not having a father in your lives, really made me see things differently. And I've had other people share similar comments with me, such that it helped me to realize that we've touched a nerve and that we've only scratched the surface of a topic that needs to be explored in greater detail. So we need to go deeper and discuss fatherhood and motherhood and childhood and families and relationship and community. These are topics that will be explored in future shows here on the station on WPFW. I've had conversations with both Kaba and Bobby. So we've talked about how we can keep this conversation going on the airwaves. And we're also looking into how we can get this conversation going in public spaces throughout the DMV. So I invite you all to be patient, give us time to sort out the details, stay tuned in to the station, and you'll hear what our next steps will be. On last Wednesday, WPFW devoted 12 hours of programming to amplify Sudan. Various programmers discussed that civil war, which has been waging for more than 2 years and has ravaged the nation, resulted in the death of over 250,000 people, and has led to the greatest humanitarian crisis on the planet. This program was necessary because our attention has been focused on conflicts elsewhere in Ukraine and in Gaza. And all too often, the concerns of Africa are neglected. We addressed this issue last week, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to participate in that discussion of amplifying Sudan. My guests last week were Amoye Niblet and Amadeus Christ, and we discussed the history of ancient Kush, ancient Sudan. We discussed the destruction of the Sudanese National Museum and the theft, sale, and destruction of priceless artifacts that are associated with one of the most important civilizations, ancient civilizations that you have never really heard of. People don't talk about Kush. People don't know that the civilization of Kush ran parallel to that of Kemet. You hear me talk about Kemet all the time. But what most people don't know is that Kemet started as a result of people in Kush migrating northward down the Nile, bringing their knowledge with them. People talk about the pyramids in Kemet, but they don't realize that Kush has 4 times as many pyramids. And there has been discussion, and there probably is evidence buried in the sand waiting to be discovered that the prototype for pyramid building and temple construction lies under the sands in Kush, modern day Sudan. But let me tell you something. Having spent 15 years excavating in Egypt, working alongside the people who excavated in Egypt and Sudan, I can tell you there's much more buried under the sand that some people want to keep buried. Some people are happy that this conflict is going on because that evidence will never be unearthed, or evidence that has been unearthed has been destroyed. So we've got to see the bigger picture. I received a text from a listener who shared some thoughts with me on last week's program, and I want to share these thoughts with you. The person who sent me this text was born in Sudan, spent his teenage years in Virginia, went to college in the area, now lives in Prince George's County. He's a friend that I've known for over 20 years, and he's married to the daughter of one of my closest friends. His name is Brother Yahuwah, and this is what he wrote me and several others in our circle last Sunday. He said, Tony, thank you for your recent broadcast on Sudan. Your work continues to bring critical clarity to the larger picture, and this episode moved me deeply. Hearing about the destruction of our history brought me to tears, perhaps partially because I'm already emotionally stretched and compromised, but also because it hit so close to home. My family is still there, trapped and struggling, slowly fading under the weight of this war. It hurts in a way that's hard to articulate. A part of me wants to get on a plane and stand and fight myself. Now, this brother has 3 children and a wife, right? He's living well, and he's ready to give it all up to go to fight to save his country. He says, I remember sleeping under the stars as a child simply because that's how we lived. I'm reminded of how strong, kind, and resilient the Sudanese people are. And I saw that when I was there in 2016. He goes on to say, my ancestors are from Dongola Badari in the city of Gali in Shaidi, the Jailin tribe, a lineage I hold with pride. Thank you for using your platform to keep eyes on Sudan. It matters more than you know. So when you get comments like that and feedback like that, it really makes you think about the work that you're doing. It makes you think, at least it makes me think about the impact that my words have on others. And I don't take this for granted. And so the takeaway from the last 2 programs on the Browder File show is this: we can't afford to take anything for granted. Don't take your fathers or your mothers or your children or your family or your community for granted. Don't take your relationships for granted. Don't take your life for granted. Don't take this radio station for granted. Don't take my show for granted because it won't always be here. Fortunately, we have archives. You can listen to the WPFW archives online or on the new WPFW app or on the YouTube channel that the station has. You can listen to the archives of my show on the WPFW archives. And as you all know, sometimes the conversations extend beyond the 1 hour that's allotted for my show. So we go into the overflow room, and you can hear the entire conversations on my YouTube channel, which is YouTube, the Browder File. You can hear all 53 of the programs that we've done. So one of the things that I've done over the past year of programming here on the station is to provide you with information and news that you can use. I know that information makes you knowledgeable, and that the strategic use of information helps you to grow. It's a simple equation. That equation is information plus knowledge equals growth. Information plus knowledge equals growth. IKG. You get it? That's been my business. That's been my life for the past 50 years. And over the 50 years, I've learned that it's wise to be careful about who you share certain information with. I've learned over time, sometimes the hard way, that you can't share everything you know with everybody. Some people aren't ready for the truth. Some people aren't ready to grow. Some people are quite comfortable exactly where they are. And I've learned to respect that. People are exactly where they want to be, and I don't have the right to move them to a place that they aren't ready to go. On the other hand, I also know that some people are ready for truth. Some people are ready to grow. So let me give you a word of advice, a word of caution as we step into this holiday season. Thanksgiving tomorrow, Christmas next month, Kwanzaa, and New Year. Some people don't want to hear about thanks taking. They don't want to hear it. Some people don't want to hear about the winter solstice. Some people don't want to hear about African principles and African values and African customs in the Nguzo Saba. So it's important for you to find your tribe. And it's important to maintain your family connections after you found your tribe. We can do both. The reality is we must do both. Because at the end of the day, we are social beings, and family is crucial to our beingness. We can't forget that. So I want you to cherish your family during this holiday season. I want you to give them your time, not just presents and gifts that really won't mean anything after they're broken or lost. Give them your time. Give them your attention. Give them your love. Because this time next year, some of them may not be around. We never know how long we're going to be here. And the worst feelings that one could have is a feeling that you should have been nicer to a person when they were here, or you should have said certain things while they were here, but we let stuff get in our way. So cherish your family and cherish these days. So with that said, I'm going to get off my soapbox, but we're going to do some thinking outside of the box on today's show. As I stated previously, I love talking about information. I love talking about information outside of the traditional information streams that we swim in and have drunk from all of our lives. I love talking about new information, and that sometimes means accessing new sources of knowledge. And there's a wealth of information that has been withheld from every single one of us. I call this forbidden knowledge because some people don't want us to know information that will free our minds. But once you've eaten from this tree of forbidden knowledge and your eyes are open to the greater realities of life, you discover that you really are a superhuman being with extraordinary powers and abilities that others want to suppress because that's how they maintain their power over you. You begin to realize that you live in a world that is controlled by Lex Luthors, and they don't want you to be woke. And they've convinced us that knowledge is kryptonite. So that's the topic of today's show. Knowledge is kryptonite. And my guest has written two Substack articles on that topic, and we're going to explore them this afternoon. My guest today is Mwebe Ishangi. He is a scribe. He is rooted in ancestral wisdom. He guides minds through history, sustainable living, and financial therapy. He is the author of 7 books, his latest being From Railroads to Robots, The Evolution of Power and Wealth, Eugenics Role in Oligarchs, and Monopolies. So Mwebe, my brother, welcome to the Browder File Show. How are you?
All right, Baba, how are you?
I'm
Bless up.
good, man. I'm good.
All right.
So um, before we get into to today's topic, after the show that we did 2 weeks ago on Black Fathers, you sent me a text and you said that that you would have loved to been have been included in that discussion, what would you have added?
Man, well, first let me say this. So the correct pronunciation of my name is Mbwebe Ishangi.
Wait, wait.
Yep.
Okay.
Um, yep. And so from that show it touched me because I was brought up without a father. And I actually have a book I've been working on over a number of years. It's called Confessions of a Fatherless Father.
Mm,
And it really talks about the that rites of passage that I felt you would instinctively get from a father. But when you don't have that, how do you find the outlet? So my contribution to that conversation would have been trying to explain like the road I traveled and how I would say even sports played a vital part in even giving me a part of my manhood. It taught me how to be aggressive. It taught me how to feel like I was a superpower, a superhero. But not having that father and then becoming a father really gave me a chance to relive being to my son what I didn't have for myself. So that was the greatest thing that I loved about this. You get to right those wrongs, and by no means could I ever see how I could do the same thing that was done to me to my child.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right the wrongs and also plug some holes, right?
facts. Yeah, a lot of lot
Yes.
of duct tape.
Yeah, a lot of that. Well,
Yeah.
whatever, duct tape, goose tape, turkey tape, whatever kind of tape works,
Facts.
you use it.
Yep.
And you are a single dad as well.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And how old is your son?
He's 16. 16 years
16, baby.
old. Yep. Yep.
16.
About to be 17.
Yeah.
Time flies.
We will be looking down upon you very soon, I'm sure.
He's already tested me, yeah, but it's beautiful because I've always said he's a problemless child.
Hmm.
I've had the fortune of homeschooling him and now he's in school and he's a self-assertive. He always knew who he was, not immunized, doesn't eat sugar, all the things that I did as a kid, he didn't do. And I just am elated to see the type of young man he's developing into.
Cool. Well, congratulations, Dad. And as
Awesome.
a father, one single father to another,
Hmm.
one fatherless son to another. I
Hmm.
want to tell you, you done good, brother. You done good. I'm proud of you.
Appreciate
All
that.
right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this knowledge is kryptonite. Just share with our listeners what prompted you to write these Substack articles and give us a general overview and just share some of the feedback that you've gotten from having written this article.
Yeah. Wow. Like, the thing for me is that I've loved, well, just for everyone to know that I have been, you were one of the first people that really helped me in my reawakening. Having read Browder Files when I was in college. And we've been acquainted for 30 years. And I remember the day I told you, I said, you're gonna be my Baba whether you want to or not. You're my Baba. And it's because you served as that father figure I looked at as far as one of the sort of guidance, the awareness that you have, the cultural awareness, the background, being also a graphic designer, all those type of things that I thought it was that type of a match. And one of the things I always wanted to do was take the information that I'm learning from our giants and try to make it palatable for a younger generation. Because I'm a Generation X baby, so reading was starting to fall in my generation due to crack and all those type of things.
Hmm.
However, I still felt our story with us creating hip hop and conscious hip hop and things of that nature. There was still that element of us in there, and my contribution was to take the information I learned from our giants and make it palatable for people in the streets. That's what prompted me to develop a magazine called The Ghetto Times, and we're celebrating our 33rd year right now, but I've been writing for about 35 years. And my writing has been because I wanted to take that information again and just present it in a way that it would be passed on to next generations. And one of the biggest pieces that I've really prompted me to want to write this article um, um, Kryptonite from Kryptonite from when knowledge became Kryptonite. I'm sorry, when knowledge became Kryptonite. I wrote that about 6 or 7 years ago, but
Mm.
it came from a conversation of realizing that we're not reading, and the reason we're not reading is the reason why we're losing. And you think about superheroes, and you think about Superman and Kryptonite, and it's not a foreign substance. It's in him. It's of him. So is the knowledge. It's of us, but we are fighting it so much or fighting against it that we are our weaker selves. So writing this article really made me look at the history that you've done. I've taken the works that you've written about our other scholars and made it in a way that it was palatable for the average person to just kind of get a synopsis of our timeline history, and for those that have been vitally adamant at keeping it away from us.
Hmm. So what
Yeah.
kind of feedback have you gotten from the articles?
And it's really it's really been overall successful, but trivial at times because some folks, we're living in an age now where we've gone from the N word to black to African American to black and right back to N. You find folks that are trying to find a way to not want to identify themselves with Africa. And
Hmm.
as Asa Hilliard always said, you study history from a chronological order. If you use a timeline, you can see where you were and what was going on in that during that time in the world. And so that article really talked about the timeline. We talked about the four golden eras, the nine periods, and really just tried to show how using Chancellor Williams' book as well, Destruction of Black Civilization, and let us understanding the origin of race relations and how did we lose? If we were all kings and queens, well, and I still don't believe that we were all kings and queens because there wasn't that many kingdoms.
Well, thank you, but I
I hate
hate
when
that
people say that.
phrase.
I hate when people say that.
You can
I'm like,
only
come
have
on.
one king at one time, right? But you got thousands of subjects, maybe
Facts.
hundreds of thousands of subjects. I like to
Facts.
focus on what the people were doing who made the kingdom, because
Exactly.
without them,
Exactly.
there would be no king or
We
queen.
take it and run with it, and we don't understand what we're talking about. And I have to correct people every time I hear them say that. But
Hmm.
that's the point is that when we see what else was happening at that period, we were doing things uh, on a large scale, but there were also those that wanted to take it away from us. And because we don't want to identify that and have that very hard conversation, that's the reason why I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We don't want to study. We don't want to read. So this is where the kryptonite of that knowledge has been impairing us.
Hmm.
So that's what I've been getting a lot of. I've been getting a lot of kudos, but not in depth. People say great story, da, 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 but like, where's your contribution? Are you and that's what I follow back with. So tell me what you're reading. What is your contribution? As I gave, please give back because I'm trying to learn as well. I'm a student for life. And then the other podium is that there are folks that are just like totally against studying about Africa because they figure, oh, we were born in America, that type of that
Yeah,
BIPOC conversation.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
crazy.
And well, no, no, no. Listen, and your generation uses that word a lot. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's not crazy. It's a reaction of the craziness that's been done to us. And
Hmm.
we have to look at it from that context because there are people, even when we were enslaved, there were people who turned on folk who were plotting to run away, or
Right.
turned on folk who were planning to stage a rebellion on the plantation and kill massa.
Right.
So there's never not been a time when there were people who were against being free,
Hmm.
been against people being self-determining, and that's a fact of life. So we have to learn how to deal with that,
Hmm.
and I think we deceive ourselves when we think that there was a time when peace was on the earth and everyone knew their worth. Now, I mean, it's a nice song, Pharoah Sanders,
Right.
but if you read the history, even back in Kemet, you see
Yeah.
they had conflicts. They had the intermediate periods when there was war, when there was
Yeah.
disunification, right? So that's a part of the human condition. And the other thing that's important is that despite there always being people who are going to try to tear you down, there will always be people who will build you up. There will
That part.
always be people who will model for you what real men do, what real women do, what community and family looks like. And
Mhm.
that's what we need to amplify against all of the odds against it. And that to me is the message, man. That's what I saw from standing at the feet of giants. That's what motivated me, and it influenced you. So you've been at this for 30 plus years, and I would like to think that you're influencing others. And that's the process. We do the best we can. We keep certain information alive. Not everybody wants to hear it, and that's okay. Not everybody will hear it, and that's okay. But we make sure the right people hear it. We make sure they know how to use the information and that they use it for good. And
Agreed.
then when we're gone, what we left behind lives forever. That's the process. And that to me is the most important thing. So,
Agreed.
your latest book, tell us about your latest book.
My latest book, I'm gonna still show you the cover. Um, this is yeah, it's good enough. From Railroads to Robots, The Evolution of Power, Wealth, Eugenics Role, and Oligarchs and Monopolies. This book
Now
came
that's a
about.
mouthful. That's a mouthful.
I
So
know.
let's break down each segment from railroads
Okay.
to robots. What's that
Okay.
first phase about?
That is doing a comparison of the second industrial revolution compared to the current one, which is the fourth one. You have your Rockefellers, Carnegies, and Vanderbilts and JP Morgans of the second revolution, where they brought in oil, steel, money, finance, etc., railroads. And then we have today's fourth industrial revolution with your Elon Musk, your Jeff Bezos, your Bill Gates. So we know what they're all about. And the second title, The Evolution of Power and Wealth, is where we see how these conclaves of folks feel like they have the position to dictate what happens in the world. And the last part of being Eugenics Role, they are want to be oligarchs, they want to be leaders, they feel like they can make the decisions for the world, but they also practice forms of eugenics where they are focusing more on people of color as their targeting point when it comes to health, when it comes to vaccinations, when it comes to food production, all those type of things. Really just population control. So this book really does do a comparison of those two sets of guys that have existed. And I have a very thick chapter about Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller, because he is actually the focal point of a lot of things that we're witnessing now done a century ago. He has been the one responsible for us even having the idea of thinking that education is the way to be successful, when in actuality it creates debt. It delays you from living what your true purpose for being here is for, because you're chasing this paper. And when you're chasing money and not understanding how money works, you're on that hamster wheel, that rat race psychosis that we have.
Hmm.
So really, this book to me is one of those things that really gives you an exposure of this total systemic design of the world we live in today, and gives you a backdrop of the people and the mindset behind them, so that you can now identify. If you want to say they, you don't have to say they anymore. Now I can give you the actual names and tell you the exact the actual things that they've done. When we look at the educational system, when we look at the medical profession, pharmaceutical industry, when we look at all these type of things that are set up, and Doctors Neely Fuller and Francis Cress Wilson talked about in the 10 areas of people activity, we can now say these are the folks that have done it. Now we can look at what their plan is and then try to make a black print from that.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, you've laid out a lot, and let me tell my listeners, you're listening to the Browder Files show here on WPFW. And I'm gonna ask you to pronounce your name again because I've known you for 30
I
something
know. I
years.
was shocked. I was shocked. I was like, "You butchered my name, Baba."
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but as we said before the show started, there's a lot going on.
I
So
understand. I understand.
70% of me is here right now. So
Understand.
please forgive me. Uh, Tell our listeners the correct pronunciation of your
Yes.
name, please, my brother.
It is Mbwebe Ishangi. Mbwebe.
Way. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So listen. One of the things that often happens, and I hear this a lot when I'm talking with folk about my work, we identify a problem. We identify a problem. We tell people, how the world got in the shape that it's in. But something that most people need, particularly because of how we've been miseducated, and you cited Rockefeller's role in shaping the miseducation system. What's the next step? How do you provide people the ABCs of how to get their lives back on track so that we can live the meaningful lives that we were born to live?
This is what this book previous to the last book is about. Pot to Piss and Intergenerational Wealth Planning for Black People. This is a book, the financial book, because at the end of the day, we spend our time more about trying to attain, as I mentioned, money. But know the least about it. Once you have a grip of how you are able to earn income, then you can control your time. Right now, our time is tied to most of us to a job,
Yeah.
and that job is taking away 40 plus hours a week. So by the time you are off, you don't have the energy to want to do those other things. And you also have the so-called illusion of certainty that your job is yours to lose. Well, because we're entering a phase of automation, we're already there, that those jobs are going to be less and few in between as time goes on. That is going to put your bottom line in jeopardy. How do you put food on the table? How do you keep the roof over your head?
Hmm.
Those are stress triggers. So if you're too busy worried about keeping food on the table and food over and a roof over your head, you're not going to be thinking about what your purpose is. You're not going to be thinking about how what can I do with my free time or what is my contribution to free myself from this situation. So that's why I wrote this book, Apocalypse, because it gives you a step-by-step uh, strategies on how to free yourself and learn how to live off your savings and investments instead of you working for it.
Hmm.
Once you have that and you own your time, then you can figure out what is this, because this is what they do. They own their time. So they can have meetings. The meetings they had today are about things that are going to happen 50 years from now because their today is taken care of. So once we're able to control our situations financially, that gives us a huge advantage to now think about where do we see ourselves a year from now, 5 years from now, intergenerationally from now.
So let me ask you a question. This is a question that I ask myself often as I try to introduce new concepts and ideas and help people develop a new mindset. So your desire is to get people to stop and evaluate their lives, to take control of their lives based on information that has been intentionally withheld from them to keep them subservient to those who control the system, right?
Mhm.
How do you deal with the resistance from the people that you want to help? Is always there, but how do you deal with it? I'm curious.
I've learned, uh, well, you and I have both been in this. You've been doing it a little longer than me, but I've been doing this for 30 years, trying to
Hmm.
talk to our people about our story. Um, but I long understood that I needed to don the hat or the psych or channel in the spirit of Harriet Tubman. I say this a lot to folks, like, look, Harriet knew she could save many more people, but they didn't want to be
Hmm.
saved. They didn't know they were sick, or they didn't know that they needed help. So all I can do is be a farmer. All I can do is plant a seed. If you want that seed to flourish into something, you will water it. If I can do my best to try to give it to you with a little bit of liquid on it so that it does try to sprout a little bit on its own, but it's going to be up to you to nurture it and fertilize it. All I can do is do my part in that respect. And as you mentioned, finding your tribe, you will find your tribe, but not everybody's their life experience of coming here for this time isn't necessarily for that. And I have to
Hmm.
understand that as well. Like I understand, well, why am I thinking the way I'm thinking? And why isn't the masses gravitating towards doing it? What is it that's holding everybody else back that isn't holding me back? And I look at it as though, and this is a little bit metaphysical, uh, people talk about reincarnation. I'm not excited about coming back here. I think I came back here because I got something wrong the last time. So I want to go to whoever's next. So maybe those folks that are coming back here may continue a couple more cycles before they get it. And if it's not me to reach them, then maybe, as you mentioned, I could write something and it could be there in the ether. And maybe 50 years, 100 years, another generation from now, they may catch it. But for the most part, I know that and it's crazy because I say crazy, but I still feel like I can save the world, but I understand that the world is not about me saving the world is fine. It's really about my journey and who do I link up with to keep my sanity and keep me on the projection that I'm leading because you can start to doubt yourself when you find yourself amidst not a lot of people or not a
Hmm.
lot of people that agree with you. So, but
Right.
I'm steadfast. I'm built for this now. I understand now that I'm okay with being a loner in this. I know there are times where that will be, and then other times I look over my shoulder, oh, there'll be a comrade. And that's
Hmm.
just the way it's designed.
Well, brother, let me drop this on you, particularly since I know you probably will be receptive to it with regards to, reincarnation, which is what they call it here in the
Mhm.
West. The Rehime, the repetition of the birth, is what they
Yeah.
called it in the East. Um, And for folk who don't fully comprehend the concept, they'll say, "Oh, I don't want to come back. I want to get it right this time, so I don't have to come back." Well, I've come to accept the fact that this physical plane is where we're supposed to come back, right? And the
Mm,
physical plane is where we can come back as creators and create our reality. We
mm,
can create. We have the power. We have the ability to be Superman, to be Superwoman, and create heaven on earth. And we've got the black print for it. We've done it before. We've done it longer than anybody else on the planet. And somewhere along the line, we messed up.
mm,
So the objective, as I see it, as I have come to see it now, process it over the years, and understand what drives a certain people to do this thing when everybody else, thinks you're nuts. Um, I like to think that we're planting the seed for another marvelous return to greatness. We're planting the seed now so that when you come back, you will reap the benefits of all
mm,
the hard work you did in this time. So the next lifetime, brother, you will be that king. You will
mm,
be that person who is on top of the pyramid as opposed to being down at the bottom, right?
mm,
And that's kind of the philosophy and the forward thinking that gets me through this. And I see more indications that that is in fact the case. Particularly, you've been doing a lot of work recently on wealth management. So when I think of all of the folk, the hundreds of thousands of people who've lost their federal jobs over the past 10 months, who put their faith in the system and the system let them down.
mm,
Those are people who are sad, but they also are people who are primed now to consider something else,
mm,
another option. They have the training, they have skills, and now they're ready to do for self.
mm,
So, in the midst of this sadness and this darkness, there is always an opportunity to shine bright. And I think when folk recognize that opportunity, and move on it. Move on it because you've been preparing for it for the last decade or so. So you're
mm,
now ready to take an active role in helping to lead people to a better place. And in the process of leading people to a better place, you are fulfilling your cosmic assignment, as Dr. Wilson said. You're fulfilling the reason for being born. Thus,
mm,
when this life comes to an end and the next one kick in, you'll be able to reap the benefits, the interest on what you invested in the prior life. And so it's done me good to look at life as a continuum, as a series of returns.
mm,
And last a year ago, we brought Wayne Chandler in,
mm,
Paul Coates, and I brought Wayne Chandler in for a presentation. And Wayne, during his talk, referenced a brother, Yoruba brother from Nigeria, who talked about the concept of reincarnation that exists among the Yoruba. And this brother said that most of us get our perceptions of reincarnation from India. And he said that the Indians have it wrong because they have a concept, they have an idea. And if Brother Renoka was here, he would tell you, yeah, they got that idea from the Dravidians, from the Africans who brought it over to India. But when the Aryans came down from the north, then they perverted this whole thing and turned it upside down and
mm,
created the caste system. So in the
mm,
caste system, they said that if you're at the bottom of the caste, you will come back in the next life at the bottom of the caste. And this brother said, this Yoruba brother said, no, we don't see it that way here in Africa. We see people reincarnating within the same family. So you're
mm,
part of a family lineage. It's that DNA coming back. And so that's why when a child is born, they will examine that child and they'll give that child a name like Omawale, which means the grandfather has returned, right? And we see the same thing in Kemet, where many princes were named not after their father, but after their grandfather, because
mm,
they understood that this is the spirit of that ancestor that is returned in this new body. So
mm,
imagine how life would be if we understood that this process is real. And it's a process of thinking and being that was interrupted by wars, conquest, and religion, which made you think that you were born in sin, which made you think that you only run around once in life, right?
Mhm.
But if we return to these old ways, this old knowledge, particularly as the systems that we believed in all of our lives are crumbling right before my very eyes, then if we do as Arthur Schomburg said 100 years ago and dig up our past, we'll find the truth. We'll find a path that's been waiting for us, and we'll
Mhm.
find the answers that we've been living for. And that's kind of what I'm thankful for. Is we
Mhm.
we think about things. I'm thankful for those scholars who have left this information available for us to find and to amplify. So you're working on a new piece, your first work of fiction, 2048.
Yeah, man.
Fatherhood in an age of control. What's that about, man?
Um, well, before I say that, I want to add to that what you were just speaking about because I align with what you're saying, and then there's another part of me that also thinks of um because I've always been a space nut. I've always loved astronomy. Always loved learning about the universe and what's going on out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always felt like there was something more. And I
Mm-hmm.
always felt like there was something before and there's something after and et cetera. So I've always felt that this is why I was saying about the not necessarily returning here. There's so much more out there
Mm-hmm.
that there's a possibility of us going. And even, from your teachings, I've learned about the Sahu and the mirror and the ascensions of
Mm-hmm.
going through the Sahu is that there are other dimensions and other experiences that we can have. And this is just one of many.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the type of things where I think about. I don't want to confine myself to just this earthly space, knowing that, or there's the possibility there's something much more grander that I can't even envision at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other part of how I see things. But this is where also 2048 comes into play.
Okay.
2048 is actually a rendition off of George Orwell's 1984. And if you're familiar with that book, that is speaking about the first exposure to a big brother concept, a shadow government, and it being put out in the masses. And it was written in 1949. And I'm under the idea that there were two reasons why the title was changed to 1984 instead of 1948. It was originally titled. Mainly because probably in the 1950s there wasn't conspiracy wasn't as big a thing as it is now. It has been monetized and made into what it is today, the buffoonery that it is now. But in those 1950s eras, if people were to learn about a big brother or government lying to them the way it lies to us, the way we know now, that probably would have caused a lot of chaos. And I don't know if the government was really prepared to deal with that type of backlash. Also, I feel like the title was post dated because it was an indication of what can happen if things continue to go on the same trajectory. And so 2048 is a playoff of 1984, the original date 1948 as 2048. And this is when Big Brother merges with AI. And this is really my first, again, whack at doing a novel, a novella, as you informed me about, a short novel that complements Railroads to Robots, the book I just wrote, because the information I revealed in Rebels and Robots, there are AI portions in there that is to can shock you, but also I hope is to motivate you to get involved. Don't be afraid of it. Actually embrace it and learn it because it's going to be a part of our everyday lives. So
I was going to ask you about AI. So what's your thought? What's your personal feelings about AI?
initially it was like, oh no, we see it in the movies and all that stuff. I don't want a robot and all that stuff, but I don't want to do retina scans and those type of things. I'm still against all those things. However, just as, computers were just for nerds back in the day, now everyone has a computer. If it's not a laptop, it's a phone.
Mm-hmm.
So, typing, I took typing in high school. People thought only women are supposed to type. Well, everybody types today. So the point is that it's going to be part of our lifestyle. So I'm not seeing it as a consumer, I'm seeing it as a developer.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are just as a consumer, then you're going to receive whatever they give you.
Right.
And can understand everything they've given us hasn't really always been to our benefit. It's been more to our detriment. So for me, AI is something that we should embrace, not just to create content or to write prompts or to cheat on college papers, but to actually learn how to code, learn how to reprogram, learn how to create something on our own to counter some of the things that are going to be created against us. If I know code enough to know, if I know the power of magnets and know that magnets can actually mess up a CPU, then perhaps that's a weapon I can use instead of trying to shoot bullets. There's certain things that we should become aware about with technology as it is evolving so that we can evolve with it. Now, I'm not saying that we should become a hybrid and get the Neuralink, not at all. However, it will become a point in time where there may be two worlds, an underground world and an upward world. And this is what, again, 2040 is about, is those two separate worlds. And one world is still connected with their African presence. They have, is based in Brooklyn and in Kigali, Rwanda. And it's about two characters who are able to sync themselves through a spiritual connection to take on Big Brother 48 and
Mhm.
annihilate artificial intelligence.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, when do you anticipate that book will be out?
Oh, that's coming out on first day of Kwanzaa.
I
First
love
day of
it. Yeah,
Kwanzaa.
you were definitive about that.
Yes,
Oh, it's
sir.
coming out.
Yeah, I've
December
been playing with
26th.
it. I was going to put it on my birthday, which is the 13th, but I said let me just give it a little bit more breathing room because
Hmm.
I still want to give Railroads to Robots because again they complement each other. These for those that want the information, it's Railroads to Robots. But if you want to, and this is why I wrote it in a novel perspective, because sometimes people will accept truth through adventure, through
Right.
storytelling. So I think this way people can like identify with the characters and maybe it'll motivate them to say, hey, this is really interesting. Well, okay, yeah, what is AI about? And then,
Hmm.
take it from there.
So, man, I don't know if I shared this with you in a prior conversation, but I want to say it now for the benefit of our listeners. You were talking about George Orwell transposing the numbers on his novel from 1948 to 1984 because the publisher felt that the book was too bleak, it was too dark, and you need to put some distance
Mhm.
between the reader and this reality in order for them to not be afraid of this um, uh, dark future that you're creating. Someone else who took that same idea and ran with it is George Orwell. I mean, excuse me, George Orwell, George Lucas, a Star Wars frame.
Oh, okay, yeah.
George Lucas was going to be a philosophy major, and he read a book by Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth.
Mm,
And reading that book and understanding that myths, particularly the myths of the Assyrian drama, have been the foundation for humanity for thousands and thousands of years. He
mm,
understood how symbolically and metaphorically you can get people to embrace all kinds of ideas. So he changed his major from philosophy to film, right?
mm,
And then he wrote Star Wars, which is a retelling, a contemporary retelling of the Assyrian drama. And
mhm,
if you've noticed, there've been 9 episodes of Star Wars, 9 Star Wars feature films, and every Star Wars film begins the same way with words trailing through the screen that say a long time ago in the
mm,
galaxy far, far away. A long time ago in the past, a galaxy far, far away, someplace on the other side of the universe. And then you see spaceships, and then you see
right,
robots, and then you see AI, and you think
right,
it's the future, but it's the
right. It's the
past.
past. Yeah,
So
that's
it's
heavy.
that psychological disconnection
Yeah.
that makes certain information palatable
Yes.
to the public, right?
Hmm.
They disengage, right?
Yeah.
And so you can now pour thoughts in their heads since they're disengaged. And basically, that disengagement means that they've suppressed their conscious mind and they're allowing this information to seep into their subconscious. And the subconscious, as
Mm,
everyone knows, the subconscious uh, runs this town. 90% of what we do is run by our subconscious.
hmm,
That's where the power is. So
hmm.
let me ask you a question. We got about a few more minutes left. In one of your articles, in the article "It's Time to Get Crypto Woke or Stay Broke," you
Hmm.
referenced the term corporate ageism. What is corporate ageism?
Corporate ageism is basically when you become a certain age where you are no longer employable, no matter how much tenure you have.
Or how much
This is when,
knowledge you have?
yeah, that part exactly, and
Mhm.
that's when corporations will sort of, as they say, trim the fat, and they will get rid of their senior levels or your tenured skilled workers and have them dumb it down to greener, new collegiate graduates who will then do the same job at a lesser rate. And
Mm-hmm.
you're basically pushed off into the out to graze with the cattle,
Mm-hmm.
left on by your own.
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
look, man, um, as we stated at the top of our discussion, you're a single parent, you've got a 16-year-old son. And as a single parent, I know that everything that you're doing now, you're doing for your son. You're doing for his children. So, what type of world do you want to create for him, and what do you want him to pass on to his descendants?
That's a great question. Honestly, I kind of self-imposed them in this 2048 book. The main character is named after him.
Okay.
And it's because it's going to be a world that he's going to have to navigate. And my hope is that he is sound in his cultural roots to know that he can rely on his ancestral connections for guidance, listening to that inner frequency, that low vibratory rate that's in his bones that tells him what's right and what's wrong, that tells him how to navigate through what's happening now and to not get caught up into, okay, there's a new shot, go ahead and get to be the first in line. No, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to do my herbs. I'm not going to follow what everybody's going to do. I'm not a sheeple. I'm going to do my own thing and understand how that's important in the land of unsovereignty. We need to be in that mindset of trying to hold on to our dignity and our self-identity as much as possible. So the world that I hope that he inherits, I hope none of this ever happens, but I want him to be prepared to be an aggressive thinker, an Imhotepian. I won't say MacGyver. The real MacGyver is
Mm-hmm.
Imhotep, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to be versatile in his skill set to maneuver in any way that he needs to sustain themselves and to continue bringing in life. This isn't about, you hear some used to saying, oh, the world is ending. I don't even know why we're bringing another child in here because we need to continue on because someone did it for you.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't be here if they stopped. So it's the
Yeah.
continuation of the bloodline is essential. And that if you do not do that, then they win.
Okay. So you've been doing this work for over 30 years, a generation and a half. Um, where can people reach you? Where can people get information about what you've done and what you are planning to do in the near future?
You can reach me at you can see my name down at the bottom in Ishangi.
Well, if folk who are on the
.com.
radio can't see your name.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yes. In Ishangi, that's MBWEBEISHANGI.com. In Ishangi. You can also go to cryptowokemovement.com. And I'm on so IG, Facebook, TikTok, etc., all those social media. And as well, I have a podcast on YouTube called WTF Ways to Freedom, Not What the Bleep. So you can go on there and then I put out information there
Wait,
about.
say that one more time. You said it kind of fast. Slow it down for those of
Okay.
us who are over 60, please.
Okay, so I have a podcast as well on YouTube, and it's called WTF, which stands for Not What the Bleep. It stands for Ways to Freedom. And this is a podcast that talks about and covers issues of the 10 areas of people activity that Cress Welsing, and Neely Fuller put together, and Kidi Awadu. So those are the ways you can catch me.
All right, cool, cool, cool.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate your role as a learner and a teacher. I'm appreciative of the fact that there's a generation of younger folk who haven't dropped the ball, who haven't dropped the baton, and who are modeling for the generation behind them how you do this thing, right?
Mhm.
It's not about giving up. It's not about getting angry or becoming afraid and frustrated. It's following the path that's been established for you and fighting the good fight. So, what words would you give? What words would you give our listeners moving forward, man? People who have a new child in the world or a 17-year-old in the world. What advice would you give them?
I like to always end my talks with this quote. If you don't have a plan for yourself, someone will have a plan designed for you, and what they have planned for you is not much. So it really is about taking control of your life, understanding that you don't have to fall into the cookie cutter pattern that's been created for us. And, push yourself to learn as much as you can about yourself first, knowing about your history, learning about your knowledge, your awareness, your culture, your background, and then not being afraid to ask those questions. And if someone can't answer it for you, find someone else to get that answer. You don't have to stop at your parents or your doctor or your lawyers or whatever. There's people out there that have the information, and actually the information is inside you. So it's really about pursuing to know and be your best self. As we talk about the summum bonum, being your best representative of yourself is key, because I feel like this experience is done for a reason. And again, for me, I want to graduate. So whatever's next, I want to be able to go to that next level, whether it's coming back here or going to another space. But I want to make sure that while I'm here, I'm becoming the best representative of myself and my lineage as possible. And before I go, can
Yes,
you
sir.
please also, I just wanted the people to know that, we've done a lot of work together. I give thanks for the years of our relationships that we've had and the works that we've done together. Some to talk about some of the things we did together.
Oh, okay. So you're going to be the interviewer. All right.
Yeah,
Well, I've got 2 minutes.
I'm not
Well,
some Joe Schmo off on the block. You know what I'm saying?
well, the last thing we did together was you did the layout for my last book, Finding Karaka Men, the revised edition. You were essential in the last Metamorphosis conference we had in 2018.
Yeah.
2018. We spent
Yeah.
time in Egypt together
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
excavation site. So we've been around the block, man. And
Yeah.
I do want to say this, man. Uh, you know, since we both have grown up without a father, having a father figure was important to both of us. So I modeled a lot of what I did after Johnny Clark and Asa Hilliard and others. And then when I connected with you, I passed the baton to you. I understood what you were looking for, and I was grateful to be there for you and to be in your life and to have someone who would listen and who would follow through on what we talked about. A lot of folks just listen and go off and do something sideways. But
Right.
what's important is to have people who listen, who understand, and who make you proud of what they do. So I want to tell you, brother, it's been a pleasure knowing you and working with you and watching you grow, and now watching you as a father pour what you know into your son, and knowing that he's going to do some wonderful things and be a model for my grandson, right?
Absolutely.
So, brother,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. It's been a joy chopping it up with you.
Amen.
This is the last Browder File show for the month of November. And this year, we're turning the page on the calendar. I'll see you next week in the new month with a new show, new things to talk about. Enjoy tomorrow, wherever you are. Enjoy tomorrow. No arguments. Have a good meal. Spend time with your family. Enjoy your day and be thankful for the people in your life. That you can do. So, with that, I want to thank you for this edition of the Browder File. I hope you got something wonderful out of it, something that you can use. And again, remember now more than ever that it's all about love. Khalil, take us home, brother. And I'll see you all next week. This is Tony Browder. Peace.
Bless.